I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. Today, I've got the pleasure of being joined by Peter Christian. He's a retired business executive and consultant, and now in retirement, he's a speaker, an author, an adjunct professor, and also a part-time consultant. Peter, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Jackie.
So I see on your website, excuse me, that you've written a couple of books. The books are kind of related to business topics and kind of related to relationships and life in general. And we'll get to that a little bit because I think that you've got some interesting things to talk to us about. But first, as I always do, let's start with a bit about your history. You were a business executive and now you're a consultant for businesses who want to grow or improve, but there must have been a little bit of travel along the way.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of travel. Early on in my career, I wanted to be an engineer. I studied engineering in college and started off in the professional world as such. But over time, I realized that engineering wasn't totally where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the business world doing business things. So I progressed. When I worked with Crayola Corporation, I got into the operational side of the business, and through it, a lot of the work I did while it was day to day with certainly getting product out and making sure that things were available was also to make improvements. So there was a lot of project type work involved in what I was doing. So when I left there and was looking at what it was that I wanted to do with the rest of my career, it was suggested that I get into consulting. I had thought about that early on in my career because I had an opportunity out of college to work for a large consulting firm. It was Price Waterhouse at the time before they merged with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I didn't feel that I was worldly enough, experienced enough to sit down and tell people 20 or 30 years my senior what they should or shouldn't be doing, because I just didn't have that kind of experience. But now, after having been an executive at Crayola and dealt with many facets of the business, I felt that I certainly could do that and would do that. And I felt confident in myself and what I was telling other folks. So I got into the consulting world and spent about 25 years in that before I finally retired. Like you said, I'm retired, but yet I'm very busy in new activities. So that was kind of the path of how I got to where I'm at today. And it's just kind of continued into my retirement. I was not the kind of person who said I was just going to kind of sit in the sun with a drink in one hand and a book in the other or whatever and just kind of while the time away. I want to stay involved and active. So I got into writing because I had always wanted to write a book and had some ideas about it. And like you said, we'll talk about that. But then I continued to look at other opportunities and reach out to folks for opportunities. So I've done some consulting since then, and I'm still open to do that if and when the right opportunity comes along. I've written lots of articles besides my books. I've done a lot of speaking now. Probably this is my 35th or 40th podcast in the last year. So I've done a lot of speaking. And also I got to become an adjunct professor back at the school in Pennsylvania. So I do remote teaching through a friend of mine who I had worked with before. And he reached out to me and said, I have an opportunity for you to teach project management. So it's been a pretty busy retirement. It's not all work. There is play. I get out to shows and concerts and sporting events like the Tampa Bay hockey team and vacations. I'm planning on one shortly to go up to Atlanta to the aquarium the Georgia Aquarium, and in the fall I'm going on a river cruise down the Mississippi or up the Mississippi. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you're going to be busy, which is great. This is the time
Yeah,
to be doing it.
absolutely. Retirement is just another phase of life. You just stop doing one thing and start doing some other things, and that's what I found to be true.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to show, that
Mm.
it's not the time to sit down. Maybe you want to sit with a drink in a hand and a book in the other, but
Sure.
not for 30 years.
No, I get too bored doing that.
You got to have a lot of books by your side.
A lot of books.
So let's talk a little bit about the consulting that you do.
Okay.
I know you consult with businesses,
Yes.
and you help them with their personnel problems or with their project management problems. What kind of things do you deal with?
The key is I don't specialize in any one particular area. The key is to find out what's really bothering them. And I say that because to ask them what's wrong, a lot of times doesn't turn out to be what's really wrong. They talk about the symptoms. Okay. For instance, in a manufacturing organization, the executive might say, we're having productivity issues on the floor. They're just not getting out the amount of material they should. So you get out on the floor and you talk to folks and you find out that every 5 minutes, they've got a new request on what they should be manufacturing. So they just about get the equipment and line set up, and then they tell them to tear it down and do something else. Well, you're not going to get a lot of production when you're doing that all the time. So it's not that the folks don't do a good job on the floor. It's that they keep getting moved around and they don't have the opportunity to produce the way they should be. You've got to give them that opportunity. So you find out that it's not so much the people on the floor that are causing the problem, but the people who are in the office that are giving them instructions what to do or not to do. I started writing a series called What Keeps You Awake at Night. And typically when I would go into a client to talk to them, that was one of the things I'd ask is, so what is it that keeps you awake at night? What really bothers you? And you spend a lot of time on trying to fix, and it just never seems to get fixed. It happens over and over and over again. And it could be a variety of different things. It could be personnel issues. It could be productivity. It could be their systems. Could be that they don't have very good policies and procedures, and it's kind of a free-for-all. Everybody's doing his or her own thing, and they need to have a bit more structure to it. Could be that they're understaffed and need to add in certain areas. It could be a variety of things. So you really have to listen and find out, and then kind of tell them what it is that's going on and what you're going to work on and try to solve in relation to what it is that, of course, is bothering them, because you want to solve that. So that's kind of where I'm at. So it could take a lot of different twists and turns.
And do you work also with individuals, or are you primarily with businesses?
I'm not a coach. There are plenty of people who do that, whether you call them life coaches or business coaches or whatever. That's not my thing. It's more working with organizations. Now, in that regard, I may wind up spending time with a certain individual, but not so much to improve their skills and to focus on them, but to focus on the organization and what they're doing in regards to that. So that's where the individual part comes in. But otherwise, no. If a vice president would come and say to me, how can I do a better job? There are other people that are experts and focus in that area. And that's not what I'm about. I'm more about the business itself and how that operates.
So then what if someone was a solopreneur? He or she has their own business and it's just not functioning properly. That's still I think probably a business coach sort of aspect rather than something that you would help with. Is that correct?
Well, if it focuses on the business, my thing. If it focuses on the individual, maybe I can provide some time, or I can recommend somebody who, again, has that expertise and focuses in that particular area on the individual. So it really depends. And I'm not afraid to do that. I want to do what's best for the client. It's not about me just getting the business and then kind of fumbling and stumbling around with something that is not really in my area. That's not serving the client and the person well, and I don't want to do that. So
Right.
I try to stay away from that. And similarly, if it's a marketing or a sales type thing, I'm not a marketer or a salesperson. I know plenty of people who are and who are very good at it, and I can recommend them, and I certainly do if that's what the case may be.
Okay, so then your main focus, from what I'm hearing, is sorting out where the problem is in the business and setting the gears in motion to straighten out whatever that problem is, to solve the symptoms, or to ease the symptoms that the bosses or whoever is worried about at the time.
Yeah, not so much the symptoms. The symptoms are what you see. It may not be the problem, and we tend to use the term root cause. What is really what's causing the problem? Not what you see, but what's behind it, okay? And too often, individuals try to solve the symptom, okay, and they don't. So it continues. And that's why they get frustrated, because they think they've got it and they spend a lot of time, and yet they're seeing the same results over and over and over again. So we try to get them past looking at just what the symptom is and really what the root cause is that's causing the distress, the issues, the sleepless nights, whatever the case.
So as I mentioned in the beginning, you've written a couple of books.
Yes.
What About the Vermin Problem? And also Influences and Influencers, How Our Relationships Affect and Shape Us. And I think that one might be a little bit more pertinent to the listeners right now in terms of getting on with others in their life and how things might affect them or affect other people. One of the things, I looked at the table of contents in both of them, and one of the lines jumped out at me. It says, it was, why having a plan is essential to knowing where you're going. And I think that kind of is important at any stage in your life, but especially important now as we're moving forward into the next stage.
Yeah. Influences and Influencers was book number 2. And even it and the first book, What About the Vermin Problem, were mostly written towards the business side of me. But as I wrote them and read them and thought about them and talk about them, they really have life lessons in there, because they deal with different aspects of my life and things that have happened to me and that I've been involved in. So I try to tell the folks that I'm talking about in regards to the books that while they are kind of business in nature, there really are life lessons as well, because we make decisions in life. We're influenced by people and things, happenstances, and so forth. And they have an influence then on how we think and do and act and react, and who we want to be with and who we don't want to be with. So they have a purpose beyond just business, I think. And anybody reading them, if they were scared about and going, well, I don't need to read a business book because I'm not really a business person, doesn't matter. They're very straightforward. I think they're easy to understand. There's not a lot of jargon in there. If there is, then I try to explain it to people, because I was always told you write to a person who has no clue what you're talking about. And when they get done, they go, oh, yeah, I understand what he's saying, because it makes sense to me. But Influences and Influencers, definitely has a lot of life lessons in there that I try to get across to folks. And what my purpose right now is to try to share some of the wisdom that I have, some of the things I went through that people may be going through right now themselves, and they're just looking for a direction. So if they read it, they go, yeah, I see what he's saying. And yeah, I'm coming across that particular situation, or I'm dealing with those kind of people. A number of folks have said to me, boy, I wish that I had this earlier in my life or in my career. Well, it's never too late. So what? You made decisions, you decided on things, and what's past is past. What do you do with your life from here on? And what do? You don't dwell on the past. You just say, okay, what's done is done. What's next, and what am I going to do? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. What's done is done. What is it that I'm looking to do next? So yeah, when I retired, I got into the book writing because I had wanted to do it, and I had thoughts in my head, particularly about the first book, The Vermin Problem. But I was kind of coerced into the second book by the person who was mentoring me, and it all worked out fine. It worked out fine. So I think I got across the points that I wanted to. And there may be a third or fourth book in the offing, but not right in the plans right now.
So without giving away everything that's in the book, because I would like people to, buy it and read it, can you talk a little bit about what kind of lessons are in there for us?
Sure. First of all, a lot about what we think about ourselves. While I believe that I'm important to people in my life, and I've been important to organizations that I have worked with or am working with, I also realize that I'm not the end all do all, and nobody really is. That we are placeholders for the things that we're involved in, whether it's as an executive in an organization. Again, I worked for Crayola for 17 years. When I was working for them, we hit our 100th, 125th anniversary. That meant that for 125 years, that company subsisted, grew, became a brand name and a very strong brand name by a lot of people who were before me. And then I worked for 17 years, and in that time, I made accomplishments, but I'm not there anymore. I've been out of Crayola now for 30 years, 35 years. It's a strong company still, and it's so it continued without me, okay, and a lot of things do. So, but while I was there, I did the best that I could do, and I think I handed over a very good situation to the people who followed me. I think people need to realize that when they become the focus of everything, and when they're not around, everything falls apart. That's not a good thing. Because that means that they've made it about them and not about other things, okay? So when I started my company with 5 other folks, ESPI, my intention was when I walked out the door that ESPI would continue as an entity beyond me being there and being the head of it, being one of the founders. And it has, and it's very successful, and that's a good thing, because I had equity in the company, which they're paying me, so I want them to continue to be very successful. But also, it kind of leaves a legacy. You started something, and a lot of people start businesses and they fail. They fail in the first year or two or whatever the case may be. I didn't want to see that happen, and certainly not because I walked out the door. So I never made it about me when I had my own company, along with, like I said, other folks. It wasn't just mine singularly. So I think that's a big lesson to be learned, is about your self-importance. Yes, you are, but also you are replaceable. Okay, you will be replaced at some day. People will miss you. Okay, but guess what? Over time, they're going to miss you less and less and less, because that's just the way life is. So realize that, do the best job that you can, and then, like I said, turn it over to the next person and let them take it from there and run with it. So that I think is very important. Another one is knowing where you came from. And what I mean by that is, we don't start at the top of an organization. We don't start as president, although I did at ESPI when we started, and I was elected president by the other folks that I was involved with. But typically we don't, okay? I mean, that wasn't the start of my career. That was far into my career when that happened. So we start usually at a lower level, and we observe the people above us and what they're saying and doing and acting and so forth. And there are things that we like that happen to us, and there are things that we don't like that happen. And my point is, when you rise in the ranks, remember where you came from and what those things are that you appreciated and the things are that you didn't like so much that really bothered you. And don't do them to other folks then. But too often I see that. I see people who complain about, oh, I don't like the way I'm being treated. Then they get into the position, they do the same darn thing that they just complained about. You're going, did you forget what happened to you? So don't do that. Never forget where you came from. It's kind of like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But certainly over time, when you're in the position of authority, I work with a number of different students, and they'll come to me and say, Peter, I'm working with this company and I can't believe what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're treating people. And that's my point to them. Okay, remember that. So the day that you get into that position where you have influence, don't do the things that you're seeing right now that you don't like. Do something exactly the opposite of that. Do what is good and fair and honest and so forth. So those are two big things that come out of it. And then there's whole bunches of other things about the different people that have been influential in my life. And I don't cover all of them. I tried to cover a goodly number of them, but there are plenty of others that didn't make the book, and maybe that would be book 2 or something on influences and influencers who had a profound effect on me, both ways. Again, on the very positive side, where I tried to emulate, and on the not so positive side, where I said, no, I don't want to be that kind of person, and I don't want people to think of me as that kind of person. So lots of things in there, again, that cover not just business, but life in general, and what's impacted me and why I am who I am right now. And they continue to impact me. I still see things that have an influence on me and change my opinion. And somebody said the other day, I'm trying to think who it is. Oh, I know what it is. We were with a person at the racetrack of all places, and we were talking about stuff. And she said to me, somebody who has the same opinion that they did 40 or 50 years ago, I don't listen to much because they're not very open-minded, because lots of things have happened. And if you haven't changed your opinion to some degree and how you act, then you're just not the kind of person I want to be around. That had a big impact on me. I thought, yeah, that's really true, because things will impact you. I'm certainly not the person I was 30, 40 years ago. I think differently. And probably in another 5 years, I'll think somewhat differently from where I am today. So I'd say those are a lot of good things, and there's plenty more in there without giving away the entire book. So if you want a good read, it's a fast read. It's like I said, a plain English read. Okay, not a lot of big terms in there that even I don't understand, and I think you get a lot out of it.
The second point that you made about knowing where you came from, I think a lot of people, it's just human nature for many people that they say, I really hate that. But then the next step is, well, it happened to me, so it should happen, what goes around comes around, kind of. It's in the opposite direction. It's like, well, if it happened to me, it can happen to you too.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, well, why don't I change that so someone else doesn't have that experience? I think that's something that we can all learn from.
Yeah, really. It's just not fair to people. Nobody should have to go through a painful process
just because
if they're alerted to it. Now, if they decide on their own, that's their choice. But we shouldn't make that choice. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm still involved with schools. I'm involved with 3 different schools with teaching and mentoring and so forth. One where I'm actually teaching classes, but others where I'm involved in some advisory capacity. But where I interact with students, I try to give them the benefit of what I've gone through so that they don't go through some of the painful stuff. Nobody likes pain. And do you have to do it just in order to learn? If somebody tells you, don't do that, and we do that when, we have young children, we say, don't do that. Don't stick your finger in that light socket. You're going to get a shock. Do we have to have them stick their finger in the light socket in order to really learn?
Some do.
So that's where I'm at. Of course, they don't quite understand at that point, so they still stick their finger in the light socket and then they learn. But you would hope them they're a bit older, like college level, that they'll go, oh, yeah, I think he knows what he's talking about. So I don't think I will try that. And that's where that's the point that I'm at right now, is trying to share those experiences and knowledge and hopefully to make an impression on folks one way or the other. I tell them, you don't have to listen to everything I say and agree with it. Okay, but I'm going to say it anyway, and then you can pick and choose what you want to pay attention to and what you don't. So I'm not forcing you. So
no, exactly. Excuse me. And in the other book, what about the vermin problem? Looking at the title, you're talking about rats and things, but you're really not. No. You're talking about very important human characteristics, I believe, more than anything else, and whether you've got them or not, and which ones are good ones and which ones are bad ones. That seems to be what it is, looking at the table of contents.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wrote it, I titled that because it was kind of catchy title. It certainly gets people's attention. Okay. Because it is different. And they'll say, is it a book on exterminating? And I say, not really, but if you want to take it that way. And quite honestly, if I had to do it all over again, maybe influences and influences would have come first, and then about the vermin problem second. Because what about the vermin problem are the choices that are made and experiences that I had working with people and companies, and where they made what I thought were very good choices and were quite successful, and where they made not so good choices against things that I advised and recommended and other people, and they had problems because of it, and then, acted surprised or indignant about it. Well, it was their choice. And it kind of goes back to to influences and influencers, where they're coming from and what's impacted them in the past, whether they've had a bad situation or whatever the case may be, or they are feeling self-important, so they don't feel they have to listen to other people, which is astounding that why you would hire somebody like me to come in and tell you my best thoughts and then ignore me. You've wasted time and your money then by doing so. And the ones that were very successful, they did listen, not because I'm that brilliant. I mean, I think of myself as a fairly smart person, but I'm pretty good at picking out where the problem areas are, how to come up to solve them. And in some cases, it's been unique to me. In a lot of cases, I learned from other people and from situations, and then just pass that on. So it's not just that I'm so brilliant that I come up with all the answers. I've learned from a lot of other people and gotten good answers. So the first book, What About the Vermin Problem, that gets into some of those situations that were successful or unsuccessful. And the interesting thing is, the unsuccessful could have been successful with a slightly different decision or an attitude. Okay. And similarly, the things that were successful, if they had made the wrong choice, it could have been a problem for them. So there's a fine line between success and non-success, and it depends on which way we go. And when we feel that things aren't going well, stop what you're doing, because you're not headed quite in the right path and you've got to change. You had mentioned about planning, and I didn't talk a lot about that, but yes, it is important in business to have a plan. It's important to me in life to have a plan. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do A, B, C, D, E, F. It's where you want to ultimately be and the direction that you take to get there. Okay, like I said, in my case, I wanted to be an engineer. I succeeded. And while I was becoming an engineer, I found out that there was more to life than just being an engineer. There were pretty cool things about being an executive and so forth. So I started to develop a new plan for how I was going to do that and to move on. And similarly in retirement, I'm still planning what I want to do. Okay. There are other opportunities out there. Somebody wants me to co-author a book with them, which I've never done before. That's an opportunity that I'm considering right now and may happen. And there'll be other things that'll crop up that I don't even know about right now. But I know what it is I want to do. I want to stay busy. I want to help other people. I want to talk. I want to speak. I want to write. And I continue to do those things. What those venues are that I do it in, haven't totally decided yet, but I know what it is that I want to do to stay active and busy and helpful to other people. So that's the gist of the first book. What about the vermin problem? Is here are circumstances. What did the companies do? Why were they successful or not? And if you don't do it that way, but you do it a slightly different way, you can be very successful at it. But if you follow their course, chances are good you'll run into the same problems and situations they did.
Perfect. So, talking about planning a little bit, excuse me, how would you suggest to people that they go about planning their retirement so that they're, they can do the things they want to do, that they keep on track a little bit?
A couple of different things. Where do you want to be? Okay, physically. My wife and I had spent most of our lives in eastern Pennsylvania, in the Lehigh Valley area. But as much as we liked it and enjoyed living there and raising our family, we knew that that wasn't ultimately where we wanted to retire to, for different reasons. It gets cold there in the winter, really cold, and we were tired of the cold and shoveling snow and dealing with ice storms and things like that. So we knew it was going to be a warm weather place. We didn't quite know where. Well, it happened that one of our children wound up in Florida, and she had bounced around the country and had even been overseas for a while. And she wanted to see more of us, and she wanted us to be close by. So she made a big pitch for us to relocate to Florida, and we did. And what we thought about was where in Florida, because there's many places, and we said someplace where our friends and people that we care about would want to come and visit, because not are they interested in us, but there's stuff to do. So we picked a pretty nice place. We're kind of close to Tampa, Florida, and there's tons of stuff to do here. We're on the West Coast of Florida, and there's tons of stuff to do, and we stay very active in that. And again, when people come and visit, we take them around. We wear them out on their vacation, because there's plenty of stuff to do, and we want them to experience some of the stuff we are. So I think it's thinking about where you want to retire, and for what reason. And again, that's right for us. It may not be right for somebody else. They may love to stay right where they're at, which is fine. We would have been very happy if we had stayed. And I still see stuff from back in Pennsylvania, and I kind of miss some of the stuff that I see, but that was in the past, and we can always go back and visit when we need to. Trying to make sure that you're secure financially, okay, that you don't have tons and tons of debt, and that you're getting enough money in through whatever, whether you have a pension or a 401k or so forth, and Social Security, that you have enough to live on and live on comfortably. So you're planning for that and spending the time. I see people who don't do that. My advice to people when I was working was, if you have a 401k plan that has, they contribute so much for what you're contributing. Let's say you put in 5% of your salary and they match 3% of it, matching fund, that you do that and you get the most you can out of the plan with what you can afford. So I always did that right from day one. So I had built up a nice nest egg, and my wife did as well. So we're fairly well off financially. We don't have any financial struggles. And so that's one less thing to have to worry about in retirement. We didn't wait till the last year of working before we decided to put money away. We had done it throughout our time. And that you plan to stay active. And again, you may not know exactly what it is. There's tons of things for you to do. I've gotten again into writing and speaking and some consulting and that. but there's tons of volunteer activities here. My wife has been involved with the Red Cross now for, I believe it's 17 years as a volunteer, and she continues to. She just took what she was doing in Pennsylvania and moved it down to Florida. In fact, she's out on a call right now. She's a disaster service person, and she's out on a call about a fire and somebody who's got problems with maybe not being able to live in their home and has to live somewhere else, and taking care of all that. So she does that, and she's involved with our local park and spending time with that. So she's spending her time doing those types of things. And then she's gotten involved in clubs and societies and so forth. So stay active. Retirement doesn't mean you just shut down and don't do anything anymore. It just means you're going to do things a little bit differently and at the pace you want to, and that, but stay active. People who retire and become inactive, I think the statistics are they don't live very long. And that's not a good thing. You've worked all your life, and for some reason to enjoy your free time, well, enjoy it. But also, stay busy with some of the other stuff. Don't just give it all up and stop, because there's a lot more to be done. There's a lot more to be done. We're living longer lives, and you want to make that as profitable to you and other people as you can.
Fabulous.
So I would say those are the things to do.
Yeah, those are definitely important. Staying active with whatever you choose to do.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're definitely making the most of your beyond retirement life.
Some people say to me, God, you're as busy now as you were when you were working. And it's like, I am, but it's a different kind of busy. I don't need to be somewhere, at some time every day like I did when I was working with clients and so forth. It's a different kind of busy. I wrote this morning for about an hour. Okay. And then I shut it off. I didn't have to complete what I was writing today. And I'm already planning it tomorrow. I'll pick it up and I'll write some more, and it'll be by the weekend, it'll be completed and that. So that's perfectly okay. So the deadlines are self-imposed, and I can deal with them when I need to, and so forth. And there's other stuff that's coming up. May is going to be a busy month for us. We got kayaking that we get involved in, and again, we're going and doing different things. And like I said, we'll be on a trip shortly up to the Georgia Aquarium. So it's a lot of neat things to do. There's just so much in life, and if you take advantage of it, you'll have a good, well-rounded and fulfilled life. So until the day I can't do it anymore, and I'm not looking forward to that day. So I think that's a long ways down the road, hopefully.
Well, that's perfect. It sounds like you've got everything set, and I think that if the listeners listen to you a little bit, they're going to be set for a long and enjoyable life as well. I think that's
do what it is that you enjoy. Pick it out, find the things, and then just do them. And
if you don't know, try some.
You never know. I hadn't been that much into writing before or speaking, and I really enjoy it now, and I look forward to it. I look forward to coming on and spending time with you today and your listeners. And I'll have one again next week, so I'm lining up different ones. So I really enjoy doing that type of stuff. And I look forward to seeing stuff and doing things. Like I said, our daughter is close by, and she gave us a grandson last year who's now 6 months old, and we look forward to seeing him and babysitting. And they weren't able to make Mother's Day because they all got sick, but they're coming up on Saturday, so it's something to look forward to. And I'm already planning that because it's her birthday tomorrow, so we'll make a birthday dinner for her, and we'll just have a nice time. So it's that type of thing that just keeps you going.
That's it, exactly. Excuse me. Well, thank you very much, Peter, for joining me today and for sharing all of your wisdom with the listeners. I will make sure that the links to your websites are in the show notes. Everyone can find them.
Okay. Yes. If anybody wants to get in touch with me and just chat about things and, get some advice, I'd be happy to share with them at no charge. Again, if you can have a happy and productive life, or if there's something that's bothering you and you just need somebody to talk to, certainly do that. And please, by all means, get my books. I think they would be good reads for you, and you get a lot out of them, which could help you with some of the situations you're dealing with.
Exactly. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. It was great talking with you.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.